Hello, everyone, and welcome to Franz's Real Estate Facts, episode 23. Now, I really don't have anything funny to say about the episode numbers other than, okay, we're now in the 20s. So that's really awesome. And also, I think what I figured out is now that I'm in the 20s, I need to figure out who do I want as the guest, and I need to actually start lining them up. Like now I have guests lined up, which is kind of crazy. So, anyway, one of the things that's happened throughout the pandemic is that a lot of people have realized that they don't really like where they live because they've been stuck in their houses for over a year. And, now things are starting to open up and that's great. But, between like March of last year and I don't know, maybe November or December of last year, people were able to stare at every single little thing in their house and be like, really don't like this fuchsia paint that I got 20 years ago. Maybe this should change. Or I really think that we should get a new kitchen because now that I'm actually cooking, I realize that having this like narrow 12-inch hallway between, the kitchen and the dining room, maybe not great. So people are doing a lot of home improvement projects, and with home improvement projects comes legal implications because home improvement projects involve contracts. And so today I am here with Sonakshi Kapoor, who is an attorney, and I know her through my involvement with the Real Property Law Section Executive Committee. She is the California Young Lawyers Association liaison. And other than this really cool service law related stuff that she does, she also has quite a bit of experience dealing with like contract litigation and specifically litigation with contractors, which is not what she does anymore. She has now moved on to different areas of practice. Nonetheless, she has enough information right now to share with us what, as a homeowner, you need to think about when you are hiring a contractor and are entering into a construction contract. Because if you do not know this, California is a state that has rules about everything, including construction contracts. And if you don't know what those rules are, you might be caught holding the short end of the stick. The contractor might be caught holding the short end of the stick, or you might find yourself going to court, which is both of you holding the short end of the stick. It's just a really short stick and you're both holding on to it. So thank you so very much for being with us, Sonakshi. I know that as an attorney, you are super busy, and getting attorneys to talk about anything in public is actually a lot harder than people realize. So I appreciate your time. And so yeah, what should homeowners start thinking about if they're going to hire a contractor? I think the first question is, there's this thing that I've heard of called LegalZoom, and you can get a contract off of LegalZoom and you can print it out and then you just have to sign it, and that's okay, right?
No, but I will talk about it definitely in our conversation. But I just want to say thank you, Frantz, for having me here. And I think this conversation, yes, I'm an attorney, but I would definitely want to wear the hat of a homeowner. I'm a homeowner and I want to, embark on a home improvement project and I need to get a contractor. So what am I going to do? But because I'm also an attorney, my brain's also running in two different directions.
Exactly.
So so here I am. I will definitely not sign a contract that I just got off LegalZoom because it perhaps it does not represent my interests as a homeowner, and perhaps it does not even address my specific wall painting project that I want to undertake. So several issues here, but one thing is definite: a contract is important. So definitely have a contract. Because especially if it's a contract, if you're embarking on a project that's going to cost more than $500, you need a written contract. That is definitely the law. So,
Yeah.
but so contract negotiation is a very important part of getting into a contract, and it becomes difficult if, as a homeowner, I'm not sure what I can ask for, what I can bargain for when I'm engaging a contractor. So there are a few things to keep in mind when I'm trying to hire a contractor and get negotiating the terms of what the scope of the work is going to be, or how much it's going to cost, what's it going to include, etc. So, because to get at the first instance, you want to be very sure that your contract is thorough, that it kind of tells you what it covers, what it includes, what it excludes. That's very, very important. Are there any supplies that are excluded, for instance? And what is the contract price? So even before you're starting, you have a good mental picture of how it's going to play out. So there are no surprises when the work is finished and you get the bill and you're like, okay, what happened? This is not what I saw coming. But yeah.
So like when we're talking about this wall painting project, it might be that I don't know a whole lot about painting, but I know some things about painting. Like maybe the project is going to only cover matte paint, and if you want like latex glossy paint, it's going to cost more. And so these are the sorts of things that you actually want to think about when you're writing the contract, because maybe matte paint costs, I have no idea how much paint costs, but like maybe matte paint costs half of what latex glossy paint costs, and so it's going to be twice as much. And the contractor isn't going to eat that cost. So you need to have a conversation about what kind of paint you want.
Absolutely. And it's possible that when you're starting on the project, you have no idea what paint you want, but you have to enter into a contract. So you can still do that. It's totally okay. You decide, okay, where you're going to go to the most basic generic paint. That's what the cost includes. And later on, you have this epiphany and you're like, oh no, I definitely want this specific paint, but it's going to cost more. So then you can definitely have a change order. Now that's the part. But that change order also needs to be in writing. And it needs to indicate how much more it's going to increase your cost for the project because of this specific paint that you now want on your wall. And it should have your consent. Like it's almost like a mini negotiation after the contract, but it has your consent. You're sure about what it's going to cost, and the contractor is also clear that this is what is required. So yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And so going back to this LegalZoom question, which, I know I'm also a lawyer, and I know so many people are just like, I can go to LegalZoom, and they love LegalZoom, and LegalZoom is great for lawyers because it means that we will have work until the end of time because those contracts are so bad. But California law requires certain specific provisions in contracts, right? Well, at least contractor contracts. So when you have a contractor, it requires specific provisions. If those are not there, can you talk to us a little bit about, what happens when the contract is either voided or voidable by the homeowner? Like, does the contractor not get paid, or what happens?
I feel like this is a little broad, but let's say, you have specific scenarios. For instance, you have a contract, the contract's been executed, but for instance, you find out that the contractor did not have a valid license. Now that's one of the issues, right? Like your contract said, so when you engage with the contract, it's going to presume that the contractor will have a valid license, and you must also check that they have one. But if the contract did not have a valid license, or was suspended for some reason for the duration of their job on your wall, then the contractor actually cannot be paid. The contractor is not entitled to any of the sums or payments as a contractor during the period that the license was suspended. So in that sense, that becomes an issue that mostly comes up if you end up litigating, if you go to court and then you are litigating the contractor's overcharged you or is overcharging, or the work's incomplete, and then you want to argue the cost, and then you would raise the issue that the license was suspended and hence the contract is not valid. But that's one specific scenario. But of course, going back to ambiguous contracts, they're not good. Specific contracts are gold. Always.
Yes.
Especially when you have something very clear in your mind. And it might sound silly because often as a layman, we're used to reading contracts as having a lot of legalese, and we think of putting simple language like, I want a wall of gold not to be part of the contract, but you can definitely put that down in a contract. Like it,
Yeah.
you can include those terms in your language. Like, absolutely. Of course, you need the legal clauses about dispute resolution and other uh, other issues that to be defined in legal terms, and of course by a lawyer. But when it comes to the specifics of the project, and if you have something in mind, definitely have it in your contract. That's what you want.
And you can, and you know, I know, I mean, I draft contracts as a lawyer, and I will draft a contract sometimes using the language that my clients have said. Like, I don't want a gold wall.
Yeah,
Fine, I'll put that in the
there is.
contract.
Yeah.
Homeowner does not want a gold wall. It's great.
Exactly.
Perfect. It doesn't have to be, I mean, contracts don't have to be legal in legalese. What contracts need to basically, you are writing a contract not for you, right? You are really writing a contract so that if and when there is a dispute, a third party, as in somebody else, can figure out what the two of you agreed to. And if
Yeah.
they can't figure it out, then you have a problem. If they
Yeah.
can figure it out, they can say, okay, you didn't want a gold wall. The contractor put in a gold wall. Therefore, this is not what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that you put it very well. Like, it's not for, it may seem like it's not, contracts are definitely for the future, and it may not seem like it's necessary at the time when you are hiring someone or engaging, but you want to have the foresight that if this was to turn sour, which may happen, you still have a remedy. You're still able to protect yourself. And that is very important, because you might be very friendly right now and you're putting your heads together and embarking on this beautiful adventure that is your home improvement, but then something goes wrong, and then you want to be protected. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing about it is, you know, the likelihood that there is going to be a dispute is directly proportional to the amount of money that the homeowner is spending.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a $750 project, most homeowners can cough up $750, and they'll just be like, oh, whatever, this guy's a jerk, not going to use him again, but whatever, $750 gone.
Yeah.
$750,000, then, you know, that's when the lawyers get involved, and that's when you need a really clear contract that says things like no gold walls, or, you know, we are going to use these materials. And then there's also sort of this stuff about, like, you know, maximums and minimums, and what that actually means. You really want to be as specific as possible in your contract. Like, this, you know, this specific tile from this specific supplier based on a specific price, you know, all of these things. The more specific you can be, the better. Because once again, you're not trying to figure this out on your own. This is not for
Yeah.
you. You guys know most of the time what you agreed to. It is so that somebody like me or a judge or a jury can figure out what did these people agree to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And definitely when the stakes are as high as you just discussed, that when you're hitting almost like a $750,000 contract price, you definitely want to negotiate a good contract, and you want to engage a lawyer very early on. And especially, and I'm assuming that when a contract is of that size, you not only have contractors, right? You also have subcontractors that are contracting with the contractor, and then that brings into play a very interesting concept called mechanics lien. And you want to be aware of what that means. It's essentially, if a subcontractor is not paid by the contractor for work the subcontractor did on your house, the subcontractor can actually, get a lien against your house, even though the obligation is between the contractor and the subcontractor. So before you clear any payments due to a subcontractor to the contractor, you want the contractor to give you these releases, these mechanics lien releases, that the subcontractor is not going to come after you or your house. You don't want that. So that's another very, very important aspect to keep in mind whenever you are clearing an invoice. Check, especially if it's a subcontractor or a supplier of, like, probably tile or paint, who you want the contractor to give you a release that this person's been paid and they cannot come after you for a lien.
Right. Or in a perfect world, before you give them the money, they say this money is going to this specific person,
Yeah.
and then they're going to indemnify you and hold you harmless if this person does not get paid and the contractor decides that they're going to walk away with the money. At the very least, it protects your house,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't, it makes it, once again, makes it easier for a third party to figure out what did these people actually want to have happen.
Yeah. No. Very, very important. Yeah. Because it could get really confusing, because it could get confusing for me as a homeowner, right? Like tomorrow I have this person filing a lien on my house and I'm like, who are you? How do I know you again? Right? And it's like, oh, this contractor you hired didn't pay me. I'm like, okay, and what's my role here again? It can get very confusing, and it is indeed a very confusing legal right that a subcontractor has. And as a homeowner, it can be very, very devastating also to have somebody come after your home and you're like, okay, what happened?
Yeah, and why did this person not pay? I thought I was paying this person.
Yeah.
And I think, kind of what you're saying, I think this is another thing that's really important about lawyers and understanding why lawyers are, I mean, I hesitate to use the word necessary, but like really why lawyers are necessary in these kinds of situations. Like lawyers do understand what, as you said, the complex subcontractor, contractor, homeowner relationship triangle that exists, and what they need to do to protect you as a homeowner.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I've heard from clients is they say something like, oh, well, my contractor has great lawyers, and so, I'm not worried. And it's like, your contractor has great lawyers who are going to throw you under the bus if anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because they are there to protect the contractor, not you. You need somebody who's going to throw the contractor under the bus if something goes wrong. And that's why hiring a lawyer is really important as a homeowner, just to draft the contract. And really, if we're looking at like $750,000, right? Drafting a contract, it is not going to cost you more than like $10,000. It is absolutely, I really cannot imagine that it would cost you more than 10 grand to get a contract signed.
Exactly.
With a lawyer. And, that might be more than the brand new chandelier that's less than possibly the brand new chandelier that you want to put in your, beautiful new entryway or whatever.
Exactly.
So like, that is important to think about. Like if you want the, Swarovski diamond chandelier or whatever it is in your house, then you need to hire somebody who is also able to protect you. It's going to cost less than the chandelier.
Exactly. No, absolutely. The foresight, you need to have the foresight to know that if you do not take this step and hire a lawyer at the negotiation stage, you're possibly exposing yourself to thousands of dollars worth of losses in terms of any kind of overcharge, or potentially having to hire a lawyer at the dispute stage because it's become so complex and you have a contractor who's coming after you or subcontractors coming after your home. So you want to have the foresight to be able to avoid those issues.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll say, because I have worked, at times with clients, like one enormous red flag is a contractor who comes to you and says, oh, we don't need lawyers, it's fine. If you say, I'm good, I would like a lawyer to draft this, and they're just like, oh, it's fine, you don't need to. Like that tells you really need a lawyer, because it's really not fine. And a legit above board contractor, like they probably don't like lawyers. I mean, very few people like lawyers on the other side. But nonetheless, most of them, if they're legitimate contractors, they'll totally understand, like, yeah, of course we need a lawyer, and this will get done and it'll be done properly. But a contractor who kind of wants to do things the way they want to do them is going to do things the way they want to do them throughout the entire transaction, which is usually going to cost you money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And so I mean, I think we've pretty nicely covered why LegalZoom is not the not the magical
We
solution.
both agree.
Yes, that people think it is. Or, there's other things. There's Rocket Lawyer, there's other LegalZoom derivatives. That entire sort of class of, fly by
Form
night.
contracts. Yeah.
Yes, make yourself, buy yourself a contract. I think you're just buying yourself a lottery ticket of a 50-50 chance of going to court afterwards.
Yeah. Definitely don't do that.
um, so I guess you mentioned sort of change orders also. Mentioned two things that I thought were kind of interesting. One of them is just change orders, and then the other thing was like the contractor can't get paid if they didn't have a license. Um, so in terms of change orders, they also need to be just as specific as the contract, right? So it can't just be
Yeah.
like, there's a change and it's going to cost you more money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It just can't be a phone conversation, though you may start out with a phone conversation or a text
Right.
message or an email, but definitely reduce it into writing. That's very, very important. And perhaps your main contract is going to talk about how you want your change orders. And if that's the case, which should be, you should have your change orders in that specific format. And it should specifically identify what you are changing. What is the new proposed plan? Is it a new paint? Is it a new tile? Is it a new addition to your house? And what it's going to cost? Is it going to engage any specific supplier, any subcontractor? Um, do you foresee the possibility of wanting release of mechanics lien from the contractor? So you definitely want to have a change order that addresses all the issues that you probably address in a contract, but with a specific a specific element of the project. Yeah, so it's kind of narrow in that sense.
Okay, so it's like, instead of the diamond chandelier, I want a gold-plated chandelier. And it's going to cost more money or not more money. And this one is going to come from Tiffany's as opposed to, whatever other company.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a change order. And the other question is, so those really should come before the change, right? The contractor can't say, oh, sorry, I decided no diamond chandelier and said it's going to be gold. Here's a change order. It's going to cost you $20,000 more. Like, that's not how it works. It happens before they do the work.
Yeah. No, you have to, especially if it's a change in the price, you must approve it before you receive the bill. It should not come after the bill. You must get a heads up about that. Oh, I'm signing up to this $20,000 increase, and I know what I'm getting into. And in contract, there's something called an informed consent, and this is part of the informed consent.
Right. And I mean, I'm asking these questions I think as well as I do that I know the answer to some of these questions, but it is really surprising that, like, when people are kind of in the throes of just imagine, you're remodeling your house. Your house is a disaster. You probably can't live there anymore. Depending, like, if it's $750,000, the house might just not be livable. You might be living in a hotel. You might be living with your in-laws. So people might not think about these things. And so maybe if the contractor comes and says, oh, it's going to cost you $20,000 more, they're like, fine, whatever, I'll pay it. And they don't actually fully think about these things. So that's why it's important to kind of ask these silly questions now when everybody is thinking clearly, as opposed to, when you're in the throes of a horrible remodel and you have basically just the four walls on the outside and everything else is, just not there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. When you're knee deep in the project, and even, for instance, if I definitely have a more objective opinion when I'm probably advising a client versus if I'm in the same situation. I know my head's running in different directions. It's trying to, like, if I'm the homeowner who's embarking on a project, I know it's very different when I'm talking to the contractor, because I'm also trying to establish this business relationship, because I want the contractor to do work for me, but I also want to be hard because I want to be able to protect myself. So it's definitely difficult, because once you are, and especially when you care, and I feel home improvement projects do have an emotional element to it, right? Like, you care about
Yeah.
something, you do care about that paint, you do care about that chandelier, and so when emotions are involved, it's very easy to surrender the logical part of your brain. It always so happens. So yeah, I think, and that's why it's important to have a contract beforehand and to have time for that, negotiating that contract. So as the project goes on, then you're not worried that something is going to go wrong, and you might be exposed to something that you didn't sign up for. And you
Yeah.
can be creative and involve yourself in that project.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is just like there is an emotional element to it, and
Yeah.
it's usually where people are living. The house might be in shambles, it might be the kitchen, that's really important to them, whatever it is. um, it is really important to kind of have an objective opinion. And I know that there are, I mean, so from the real estate side, there's certain types of loans where they actually have a it's either an FHA or some type of governmental certified manager who's reviewing everything and making sure that everything is correct. And as a homeowner, you can also hire those people yourself. And that's all they do, right? Their
Yeah.
job is to review change orders, review contracts, review pricing, make sure the pricing is legitimate. Is this sort of market rate? Is this contractor overcharging you? And again, just like paying a lawyer for a contract, hiring one of these, I don't exactly remember what they're called. They're not project managers. They have a specific name, but I'll call them project managers for the purposes of this conversation. Hiring a project manager, again, is not that expensive, and it can save you a lot of headache down the road, and somebody else is responsible for managing the things that you don't want to manage.
Right. No, that's true. And I think especially for projects that are very, very large and have different, it has an architect, has a design professional, has several subcontractors and suppliers, you want a project manager to be the in-between, the one who's coordinating everything and coordinating and taking questions, because they're going to be, otherwise it's going to get very, very, otherwise you will be the project manager. And you want to
Exactly.
know whether you have the time and the brain space for that. But definitely getting a project manager would streamline a lot of work, especially on a very large and complex project. Something you want. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are other things too. Those are definitely other things to think about. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, do you have any other final thoughts in terms of contractors and projects and what people should do?
Yeah, no,
Homeowners should
absolutely.
do?
I think home improvement projects are great, and definitely, and contracts are great. Both things are something that I like. So
Yes.
definitely have a written contract when you are engaging a contractor. Uh, and it should be specific and customized to your project. Definitely do not take any form contract of LegalZoom, or do not take anything that's served to you. Uh, Definitely read it. Engage a lawyer if it's something that of a lot of value and you want to protect yourself. You definitely should want to engage a lawyer at the negotiation stage to protect you. And yeah, and get your wall, get your chandelier. That's the goal.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
exactly.
Or the spiral staircase, or really whatever it is, and get it with as little headache as possible. I mean, I hear so many homeowners who just like have terrible experiences with their contractors, and they're just like, this is such a horrible experience, or it was never
Yeah.
on time, or it's not on budget, or it's this and it's that. And you can avoid these types of headaches if you really plan ahead of time. And the
Yeah.
other thing I mean, and I also know contractors, a lot of times people are giving bids, right? So the contractors are competing for bids, and of course they're incentivized to give you, say you're going to spend less money. Um, be, but the reality is, I mean, if you say, okay, here's your bid, now you need to write a contract to back up the bid,
Mhm.
then you might find out how much it's actually going to cost. If you get a $500,000 bid for a project that's worth 1.5 million, it will end up costing you somewhere between like maybe 1.25 to $1.5 million. I mean, that's just the reality of it, even if
Yeah,
the bid is 500.
yeah, yeah. I think that's why that's why uh, the contract has this concept called a guaranteed maximum price. You want it to indicate what it's going to cost, the contract's going to cost, and your price should not be more than the guaranteed maximum price as specified in the contract. And if at some point, because of big change order or a big replacement you have in mind, it's going to increase or it's going to pass that 500,000 value, then that's when you need a written change order that specifies the price increase, that specifies why there's a price increase. So, I mean, big projects will have multiple change orders. That's how change orders are a very, very important part. It's equally important as the contract, because I don't think construction projects or home improvement projects can go without change orders. You will always change your mind, and you want that space where you can change your mind.
Absolutely. So that you get a project that you like and are
Yeah,
very happy with.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, Sonakshi, I really appreciate your time and your coming with us. A lot of times I ask my guests, if if well, the way I usually close this out is, if somebody watching thinks that you are awesome as wow, this did not work out as well as I thought it was going to do. If anybody watching sees you and thinks you're as awesome as I think you are, how can they get a hold of you? However, in this case, since this is not really your current practice area, I don't know if you really want to do that. But maybe just for the purposes of closing this out, what did you shift from doing contractor disputes and all of that to what do you do now?
Yeah, that's a fair point, friends. This is what I used to do previously, and I'm not doing that as part of my current practice. But I've been happy to share this information just from my own personal experience as an attorney, and also as a person who wants to undertake home improvement projects. But yeah, this is not part of my current practice, and currently I'm working on key environment, social governance issues for corporate environment, social governance issues, actually, which kind of covers helping companies assess the environmental impact of their operations, the social and human rights impact of their operations. So it's a big practice, and something that I've cared about for a while, and something that I've done on and off, but I definitely want to focus on my time and energy on this specific practice area. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I have to say the work that you are doing now is super interesting and awesome. And I also have to say that since I know you and I've talked to you a little bit, your story is actually extremely compelling, and you really do care about people and you really want to help them. And I know that from just hearing what you've gone through. And so I really appreciate your being here. And I also really appreciate your, as an attorney, taking your time and sort of chatting with our viewers to help them understand how to protect themselves, which is very much in alignment with your idea that it is important to use our legal knowledge to help people and make the world a better place.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for this wonderful closing statement, and you're very generous with your compliments. It was wonderful being part of your podcast Facebook Live series.
Yeah,
No, and this is like wonderful work. I definitely look forward to, you know, uh, scrolling back and seeing what all you've done.
yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. And next week we as I said, have guests lined up. So we will have another really awesome and amazing guest. And because my network has a lot of lawyers, I think that we might have lawyers for like a while, maybe. But if you do want to be a guest on the show, then please do reach out. I'm always open to different suggestions. I have a variety of guests, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.